Hey guys, welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. So we've got some brown foliage going on here on this Japanese maple. Is it a bad thing? Is this tree dying? Let's learn about Marcescense today. I hope you'll stick around and find this informative. If you do, like, subscribe, and share. We do daily gardening content here on the Mr. Maple Show. Hey guys, check out this lace leaf. We're here in a courtyard at First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, and this tree gets a lot of reflective light, which keeps it active, leading to a lot of Marcescense. That's basically this foliage that's hanging on here year-round. So even when the tree is normally dormant, we're still seeing a lot of that foliage hanging on, protecting those buds from extreme cold temperatures.
Now, the reason this happens a lot of times too is the plant itself isn't able to go to fall color, so it's not able to start senescence before those cold snaps come in. And once those cold snaps come in and it hasn't went to fall color, often it'll leave these leaves hanging on the branches. Now, sometimes that'll happen after the fall color as well, but it's very common if a plant hasn't went to fall color for it to get hit with a cold snap before it's went to fall color, and it'll often cause it to hold on to its leaves.
Yeah, guys, we're here in Western North Carolina. We're in zone 6B. It's not uncommon for us to get a couple days, even in the 20s in mid-October. Sometimes those trees haven't fully went through all that changes yet. And oftentimes what happens, the tree itself says, hey, it's going to be a really cold winter this year. We should keep everything on we can. That's the most basic understanding of why this happens. The leaves stay on the tree to prepare it for extreme changes ahead. Now, it actually doesn't hurt the tree in any way. I've had seasons where every single tree in Maplewood Gardens had, the foliage still on it in February. Now, oftentimes we'll get some wind spells or, we'll just get some winter weather, the snow, the rain. It'll knock all this off naturally. I actually recommend letting it fall off naturally. And if it doesn't fall off from that, it'll typically get pushed off when that spring foliage emerges in the spring.
Now, I've often heard one of our good friends, Carl Munn, describe the petiole, the part that holds from the branch to the leaf. He calls that a bud shield. And that's a smart way to look at it. That shield right there, that petiole, is holding on to, the leaf stem is holding on to right above the bud. And that is protecting that bud from the inclement weather. And when that plant holds on its leaves, it's got the extra protection on those buds itself.
Now that bud encased in there may have not fully ripened for that exposure to the colder weather. So you want to let that harden and fall off on its own. If it absolutely bugs you to no end, you can trim this with scissors, dropping the longer part of the leaf, leaving the petiole on there. I recommend leaving it on completely.
Definitely leave that leaf stem on there. Don't take it off naturally because you can actually damage the bud behind that leaf stem. So make sure that you leave that stem on there naturally and let it fall off. Often when this plant puts on new growth in the early spring, it's going to push off this older leaf.
Yeah, and if it doesn't at that point, go ahead and remove it by hand. You've already had those buds, leaf out in the spring. They've already reached fruition. The last thing you want to do is damage those buds or expose them to the colder temperatures that hanging on of leaf is protecting them from. So you can lightly trim if it's really bugging you, but don't remove the petiole. Leave that on, let it fall off naturally. Ripping it off can often rip your bud, which may lead to bud damage in the spring or a lack of bud formation in that area. Hey guys, but you don't have to take our word for it. We're going to talk to one of the top horticulturalists in the United States. Let's cut to our good friend, Dr. Creech.
Yeah, Dr. David Creech is Professor Emeritus of Agriculture at Stephen F. Austin University. Great expert when it comes to plants.
Hey, you can feel this wind taking the leaves off right now naturally. I'm on the phone here with Dr. Creech, and I wanted to ask you a question that's a frequently asked question amongst our Japanese maple customers and other plants, but it's about why sometimes our brown leaves hang on our trees, into those winter months. We're starting to have that cooler time, and then all of a sudden we look at our trees, especially here in North Carolina in like December sometimes, there'll be a brown, litany of brown leaves just staying on the tree all winter long sometimes.
Yeah, this is typical of some maples and a lot of plants, really, many natives. Beech does that as well. And the term is called Marcescense. And basically it means in the fall that when the plant is getting a signal to go dormant, it is basically doing that, but it retains its leaves. And it has a lot to do with the hormones and the physiology and the genetics of it. sometimes Japanese maples will. We've had many. They do hold on to their foliage even after they're burned off, and it's just the nature of the species. It's not a bad thing. It's part of it. And some people like to have foliage, whether it's gold. I'd say let's call it golden. You don't have to say dead brown. People do. People do call me about that and say, "I believe they're all brown." I said, "It's winter, and they're just holding on to them, and it's not that big a deal." And a lot of it depends on how those first freezes hit. And sometimes it just looks like they freeze a maple in place, and it just hangs on there until it finally sheds later on in the year. Acer scucci, which is the Mexican mountain sugar maple, has always had this trait, and I've got pictures of it in full show in the middle of January because it can tolerate quite a bit of freezing and still hang on to its leaves and still keep the color in the leaves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a genetic thing based on what species you're looking at, and there's a lot of native genetics that do that as well. I don't know if there's any benefit to throwing the leaves or keeping them. They are dead or on the way to being dead, but it's not a malady. There's no spray program to take care of it. It's just the nature of the species.
Yeah, I always recommend people just to leave them on instead of removing them. Sometimes people pick them off by hand. I always feel like that could damage the buds below for next spring, and just let them naturally run their course.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the same thing happening right now in this darn freeze. We have so much damage, and the first thing people want to do is run out and prune the heck out of everything. And every horticulturist is Google YouTubing right now. Just leave the darn thing alone until you kind of see what the heck's going on. And that will be up in the spring sometime. And it's also true that the above ground parts can kind of protect the lower parts that are still alive after a hard freeze. So a lot of people just love a lopper.
Right. Oh, perfect. Thanks so much for that explanation of that. I wanted to catch you and have that for our customers. It's a frequently asked question for us, and I think you'll give a lot of people a lot more confidence hearing that from you. I tell people that sometimes, and they're like, "Really?" So I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to get Dr. Creech on here to explain this a little bit so that people can kind of wrap their heads around it, because I know it scares people a lot of times seeing that foliage on there. Even in January here in North Carolina, so people are like, "I think my whole tree's dead," and I'm like, "Hold on, it's not nothing to panic about."
There's another term I use. I said, "Oh, it's just being tardily deciduous."
Right. Thanks so much for that. That's perfect. Guys, the point to our Friday videos is really just to be informative and to give you guys more information about Japanese maples. We love getting in here, kind of doing how-tos or explanations. I wanted to get Dr. Creech involved on this one. Marcescense is something we get questions about a lot. I wanted to show this to people and kind of explain what it is, but also give you some confidence about what it is. I mean, a lot of people look at that and they think, "Oh no, I have a dead tree." I know it scares a lot of gardeners when they look out there and they see that brown foliage, in January, and they might not have noticed that it was occurring going into fall.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things is to realize, don't start pulling off those leaves because you can damage those spring buds. And I think that's something that people need to realize, because often people will go out there and start ripping off the leaves.
Right.
And those leaves can often protect those buds when you have those cold, crazy spells, and keep your plant in a healthy state.
Yeah, especially here in colder zones like we're at. We're just 6B here in Western North Carolina, so we're not an extreme cold area. But, those Zone 5 people and Zone 6 people, it's really important to leave those buds on. That may help protect those leaves on. That may help protect those buds deeper into the season if we get any colder temperatures. It also provides an encasement to those buds for any future extreme changes. So you're actually, insulating the buds. Typically what happens is next year when those new leaves emerge in early spring, they're going to push that rot off anyway. That's a point where the tree has already reemerged. If you're still having some, brown foliage hanging on at that point, it's okay to remove by hand, but I'd just let it come off naturally. At this stage, it's already best to let it run its course and re-leaf in the spring.
We really appreciate y'all watching today's video. We try to do our very best in informing you on how to grow Japanese maples and all your top questions. And this is a question we get every year, especially right now in January.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that people, really get worried about. There's heavy debates and groups online. I see a ton of bad information in some of those groups by people who are very knowledgeable, and they say, "Hey, yank all that off now. You can go ahead and get it." And it's best not to. Let it run its course And we hope this gives you more confidence in identifying what the issue is and understanding if it's not something you have to do too much about. So we hope this gives you more confidence in gardening with Japanese maples. That's really the point to our whole channel here is confidence with Japanese maples and other cool plants. We love building that horticulture knowledge, though. This is something I learned about from asking Dr. Creech. It's something when I first went and visited him, I had a lot of questions about it. We had a year where the entire garden there at Maplewood Gardens had a ton of Marcescense, and it was just tons of foliage hanging on there late into the season. And I went to him specifically. I said, he's going to know the answer. Let's talk to him about this. And I've since shared that with so many people. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We really appreciate it. It helps promote our video and get other people to see our video. And as always, we appreciate if you'd shop on MrMaple.com.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.